Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Canty, and this is another episode of Living Enlightened Every Day. I love helping people to love their life and live their passion by integrating spirit, mind, and body. And even more, I love finding people who are out in the world doing just that. And today, well, get ready for an incredible conversation that could change your life. Today, I have the honor of welcoming a truly extraordinary guest, a man on a mission to transform lives and elevate consciousness across the globe. He is a keynote speaker, coach, master meditation teacher, author, and film producer. But more than that, he is a movement maker, inspiring 1 billion people to experience the power of meditation. You may know him as the co-creator of the groundbreaking film and book, The Portal: How Meditation Can Save the World. It is a powerful call to awaken humanity. And as the visionary behind the Stillness Project, he has developed life-changing tools and programs, both live and digital, to help people everywhere unlock deep stillness, clarity, and peace in their lives. And that, my friend, is what he's bringing us today. So stay tuned. Before we begin, I just invite you to take a deep breath right where you are and listen from your whole being. Just listen with the intention that you will absolutely find something incredible for you in this podcast. It could change your life. Welcome, movement maker and thought leader, Tom Cronin. I am so glad you are here today with me.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks so much for the invitation. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
I am too. And before we were recording, we were talking about what a powerful time it is. I'm going to use your words to change the world, creating this movement of 1 billion people meditating. Why is now such a great time for that to happen? And I really do believe you can reach your goal with all of us working together, 1 billion people meditating and change the world as we know it.
Yeah, look, it's a great question, and I don't want to start with some doom and gloom, but one thing we want to start looking at is where we're at as a species. And after talking to many people who are very established in existential risk to humanity, and these are highly esteemed professionals and scientists and people like that, and it seems very apparent that we're moving towards a cliff. And only just 2 days ago, the Doomsday clock moved to 89 seconds to midnight. It's the closest it's ever been, and that's based upon a number of different parameters that look at the risk humanity's having to exterminating itself, basically. And if you look at the decisions we make that have led us to this particular point in the world, these decisions are based upon a state of mind of individuals and their individual states of mind that collectively make decisions. And the way I see it is that meditation plays an integral role in shifting that state of mind. And one thing I know is that meditation doesn't make us perfect, but it certainly makes us better. And I see this consistently, not in my own personal journey. I still have my own issues and challenges that I grapple with on a daily basis, but we certainly become better humans. We become more integrated, more harmonious, more compassionate, more caring, less obsessed about trying to buy something or acquire something to get fulfillment, because we cultivate a deeper sense of fulfillment from within. And that, I believe, will be one of the key points to changing humanity and changing the trajectory that we're on. So I'm very motivated to bring meditation to the households of the world in a big way.
You know, you have a quote by Oprah Winfrey. Would you share that with us?
Yeah. And one thing about Oprah, she practices a technique of meditation that I teach, one that I've been using for 30 years, transcendental meditation or Vedic meditation. And she says, the constancy of stillness, it is only from that space you can create your best work and your best life. So this is a very successful woman, and she's saying that the key to having a successful life is the constancy of stillness. Now, a lot of people think of meditation or stillness as some woo-woo thing that is for monks in ashrams or monasteries where you sit in lotus. And a big part of my mission and vision is to bring this into the households, the corporations, the organizations of the world, and make this a daily habit for everyone, knowing that they can create their best life and their best work from that particular space of deep quiet and deep rest.
Stillness equals power. And I think that is one of the things that our society, many societies and cultures haven't really realized yet. It's they're thinking that it's just something people do to be quiet, or that it's just breathing or sitting in a certain position, and not realizing that it's really connecting us to that deep intuition, our deep source, our spirit, and or whatever we want to call it, a higher power. And from there, creativity flows. Of course, more peace, more love, and more compassion flow. But when we try to bring it into this Western world, it's the idea that no, it helps businesses, it helps relationships, it helps communication, it helps on every level. It up levels us as human beings.
Yeah, Ray Dalio, the world's largest hedge fund manager from Bridgewater Associates, managing $190 billion worth of assets. He's only recently retired, but his company is humongous and one of the highly revered hedge funds in the world. And he tweeted that the key ingredient to his success is his meditation practice. And he does the same one that Oprah and I do. And we traditionally have seen meditation for thousands of years in the domains of the Himalayas, India, Tibet, Nepal, and only in the last 50 have we seen the movement of that spiritual practice move into the West. And for thousands of years, it just was known that it was something that was highly beneficial and that people did to give you the human optimization. When it gets to the West, they need a lot of science. But we in the West, we like to think a lot and we like to analyze a lot. So we need to know why it works and how it works. So it did, receive a lot of studies and a lot of prodding and poking and people doing research on meditation. What they've found is that it's extremely powerful at getting humans into peak performance. Anyone that knows anything about flow states know that having that burst of activity and creativity comes from the place of recovery and stillness and meditation. So that is an integral part of the peak performance for the human experience. It's also an incredible tool to help us break free of the conditioned mind where we have these habituated thoughts. These are called vasanas. And a vasana is a tendency of your mind to think in a habituated way. Now, that software code is usually programmed into you by your parents, your school, your society, your media. And you're operating on a system that usually is quite outdated and not even your own operating system. It's someone else's operating system, just like your phone is someone's operating system that's put it into the phone. So what we want to do is we want to transcend that limiting belief process and access the field of consciousness, the field of creativity, the field of pure potential. And I liken it to the phone because the phone has the operating system inside of it, which is programmed by someone. But what's really magical about the phone is it can access the information that the phone is in. The phone's in the information field, which is the web. So if I'm in Antarctica or Venezuela or Bali or UK, that information field is accessible through the access point of the phone, but it needs to have that ability to access that field. So we have the field of information, the field of creativity, we're in that field, and we want to be able to access all that potential that lies in that field and tap into that. And meditation plays an integral role in doing that.
Yeah, I hope people really get that. I love your analogy, which is real. I've never really heard it that way, but I usually say, we have the ego, for me, is a subset of a finite mind, a seemingly finite mind. But the finite mind is just a subset, it's seeming, it's not separate. But I always say it's like this perforated bubble. And when we go to sleep, we can kind of expand. But when we meditate, we can really expand into the information field. Some people love to call it now the quantum field, the infinite possibilities, all of those things where there is infinite possibilities for each of us. It isn't like it's special for some people. Everything that is outside of what we know is, and then we can access it. And that makes us superhuman or super beings, it's really powerful.
Yeah, I see this really exciting point for humanity where we've been on a particular evolutionary journey for thousands of years, and not a lot of has really changed for us as a species. You know, obviously the external world where we've got internet now and we've got all sorts of incredible inventions and technologies. But as far as the human operating system, if you go back 50 years, 100, 1,000, 5,000 years, most humans are still operating on a very similar sort of approach, which is what I call outcome oriented fulfillment. My
Mhm.
fulfillment, egoically, is derived from acquisitions and experiences that change my inner state. So my inner state is derived and changed and influenced by the outer world. But what we're starting to learn for more enlightened or conscious humans is that they don't operate that way. They realize that instead of the external world changing their inner state, they realize that their inner state is changing their external world. And this is where the power really starts to
Yeah.
happen for us as humans, where we're no longer at the mercy of circumstances and events and situations to be the source of identity and fulfillment, but more we establish identity and fulfillment, and then we go into the world and start creating that world around us. And that's when we're going to see incredible things happen when collectively as a species we start to realize this.
And we're waking up to it. I noticed that you have on your website something about the schools. Are you taking your programs into schools? Because I know we're trying here. We have baby steps here. I know in Florida we have, some still time with the second graders or something. But even if it was just one grade or just 15 minutes, if these kids had that every single day at their school because their parents may not care or know enough to do that or just too busy or whatever it is, but that's when, I mean, I just get so excited about the possibility of these kids growing up with these ideas of connecting, being always connected to this infinite source, this infinite field.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I saw a talk done by a principal of a school in the USA. He was touring around the world, and I was lucky to see him in Sydney. And he was talking about the school program that they have. And this school is one of the very few, in fact, I've only been able to find one other school that does this, where the only qualification of the students coming to that school, so there's no prerequisites as far as their level of intelligence. It's just anyone can attend this school. But one of the things, if you do attend the school, is they start their school program each day with a meditation, and that's sitting in stillness. And they finish the day before they go home with a meditation. Now, that school is ranked in the top 1% in all schools in the USA across all areas. That's from geography to science to maths to sport. And that's because the children are having obviously less stress, impeding their ability to be optimized and increasing their brain functionality, which we see as an incredible result of meditating, but also changing their biochemistry. Because when we're in a stress state, we don't have the biochemicals of melatonin, serotonin, and oxytocin. We have cortisol and adrenaline and norepinephrine. So to have that shift happen for children, they're happier, they're more expansive with their minds, they're more creative, more intelligent. And so I'm very passionate about getting this into schools. The challenge we have is that if you look at the pillars of our society, so the banking system, one pillar, or the financial system, we've got the political system, we've got the education system, we've got the health and medical system. I probably wouldn't call it the health system, let's call it the medical system or
Right.
pharmaceutical system. Now, these pillars were all created around 200 years ago.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing consciousness changing on our planet collectively. It's slow, but we're definitely seeing exponential levels of growth of people becoming more conscious, more awake, more aware. And those pillars, they're so deeply ingrained and established, it's very hard for them to change. And so my intrigue and curiosity and inspiration is to see if we can start creating new pillars or changing those pillars to some way. And we're already seeing that. If you look at the media system, which was magazines, TV, and radio, now that's changed quite dramatically just in the last 15 years, 10 years more than anything, because we've got social media now where anyone can create a platform and start conveying information, which is undermining. Even I just saw the other day, the New York Times and CNN, their viewer rates were dropping quite substantially. So we're seeing some changes, and I think we're going to start seeing changes in the education system. And if I've got anything to do with that, I'd love to see that happen more quickly. But it's very hard to get into these education systems. They have a very stuck and rigid way of the way they like to do things, which is just pour as much information into kids and see if they can regurgitate that information at the end of the year and get some marks. They can go to university and do the same thing again, which is just a failed system in my mind.
If I had had this information when I was young, I don't, I mean, really young, I can't even imagine how I would have acted in my world so that my world would have appeared to me so differently. And my son did grow up. He's 22 now with this. And the interesting thing to watch him, first of all, he would meditate when he was 3, when his friends would sleep over or something. And I was like, you can't wake them up really early. He would just sit in his bed and meditate. Or if I was meditating, he would just come up and sit next to me. I wouldn't even know it half the time. And he'd just sit across from me and kind of imitate me. It was so cute. He didn't, that was not mirrored back to him by the other kids. No one else's parents were, meditating or teaching him meditation. But now that he's in college, at university, there are some people, there are people who are willing to talk about it and who are willing to experience it in different ways. And that, I think, is going to be part of this change that we're talking about, is these kids who aren't part, they're not attached to the structure the way, say, my parents were, and I'm not really attached to the structure that's been. And they're starting to see they have to create new ways. They have to create these new pillars, along with some wise and sage people who are out there. They're not going to have to invent the wheel, but they can step into the wheel you've created, which I think is so beautiful.
A lot of people ask me if I work with kids, and I have taught some children along the way. But one thing that I'm really interested in is working with parents, because exactly like you said, children grow through osmosis. So you can have a really peaceful, calm kid who meditates at school, but if he's coming home to parents that are violent, abusive, drinking, and just in a low state of consciousness and not very calm and peaceful and happy and loving, then it's going to affect them. And children, like I said, grow through osmosis by observing the way people around them behave. So if we've got parents that are calm and peaceful and meditating, by default, the children would just pick that up as a natural inclination. Yeah. Even just my daughter, who's 22 as well. I've got a son and a daughter, beautiful twins, and they're both 22, of course, being twins. And she said to me the other day, she's written a novel, and we're sending that off to publishers and book agents. And she got knocked back by the first agent that we approached. And it was really interesting. Her first immediate response to this was dejection, and the circumstances of the external world are changing her internal world, and she was feeling a bit flat and deflated. But then she sent me a text the next day, and she said, look, Dad, I was at work and she was at uni, and she said, Dad, I think the universe has other plans. I think that there's an opportunity up ahead for us to refine the book based upon their feedback from the book, so that the publisher that I actually wanted to send it to, the agent that I wanted to send it to, will have a better version. And so, these children are starting to pick up your conversations with your parents, or with your partner, or with your children. They're going to learn things along the way. And this, I think, is a critical way of us changing just in one generation, the way our children see the world. And she's seeing the world as this beautiful process that has almost like an intelligent design in it. When someone who's 22 says, I think the universe has other plans, they're saying that I think and feel that I'm part of a bigger interwoven web of intelligence, not just my own internal intelligence, but there's also an intelligent field that's working in some way, shape, or form that I'm part of, which is mind-blowing for 22-year-olds to say this sort of thing.
Absolutely. And what a beautiful example. And so anyone listening, that can, one, be your child or your grandkid or whatever that looks like, but it can be you. It can be us, not being, there's a moment of dejection, there's a moment of reaction, and then it can, with the stillness that we've built into us with practice, with a habit that we have of being still, we see things differently. It's like, oh, that was one way to see it. I get it. My body kind of jumped onto that. And now I can see it this way. Oh, and then I can see it this way. Wow. And then I can see the possibilities. And again, that takes me back to the power in meditation, the power of creativity, the power of our authentic expression and not having to confine ourselves to what we have thought we've always been. We can create ourselves anew really every day. And while we're there, I'm going to ask you, because I think it's so powerful, as a lead into the portal, but can you tell us a bit about your life, your transformation where you were? Because that is kind of a classic story of somebody who has everything and they're still not happy. They're still not happy and in success, that kind of success.
Yeah, I was an extremely successful broker, so very Wolf of Wall Street on a trading room floor. I was young, I was paid a substantial amount of money. I had an incredibly fancy sports car, I had an amazing house about 500 meters from the sands of Bondi Beach, a beautiful beach in Sydney. I had an amazing partner, I had wonderful parents. I had everything as far as ticking boxes that you could tick for establishing a life where you should be fulfilled.
Yeah.
And yet, in the process of acquiring those things, I paid a huge price, and that was my fulfillment, my happiness, my joy. I had developed addictions, I had developed anxiety, I developed panic attacks, I developed insomnia, I developed agoraphobia, I developed really, ultimately, this led to a nervous breakdown, a complete collapse, where I had to take mental health leave from work. But it was in this time that I came across meditation. I was, seeing doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, had to report in on a daily basis to make sure that I didn't, do something silly and take my life. And I was having suicide ideation. So there was quite a rigid program that I was on with the Western program, Western medicine. And it was in that time that I found meditation. And interestingly, what happened was most of those anomalies were a result and a byproduct of me being for long periods of time in the sympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
The nature of my job was high stress. And as a result of the high stress, we would go into environments that compounded high stress, which was nightclubs and bars and lots of drugs and drinking and partying. So you're just getting compounding stress on top of each other, which is what a lot of the world is doing now, particularly young children. And this just led to a major breakdown where my system just said, we can't take this anymore. This is too much. And it was in that time that I found meditation, and everything changed because I moved my body out of the sympathetic into the parasympathetic. I started to change my biochemistry naturally through the deep stillness that was happening in meditation, starting producing oxytocin and serotonin and melatonin, like I said before, reducing the cortisol and adrenaline. And I ended up going back to work and becoming very successful and sustaining another 16 years in that career, just meditating every day and not drinking or taking drugs and
Oh,
going
that
to
I
bed early.
didn't
And
know.
yeah,
Wow.
I became very successful as a broker and sustained a 26-year career overall as a broker. And eventually, after going deep down the rabbit hole and studying Eastern philosophy and advanced practices, I left to become a teacher. So that was kind of the arc of the journey. And I see this process for everyone really that goes through crisis to chrysalis and then into someone that wants to bring that, I guess, the tools that they use for transformation to the world in some way. We see this a lot with people. I see the process being seeker, finder, sharer. So what that means is that we start off seeking, and we're seeking for fulfillment. Now, most of us are seeking for fulfillment through buying things on Amazon, drinking alcohol, gambling, shopping, working. Then eventually we kind of exhaust that avenue and eventually find the seeking happens on the inside.
Right.
Then from there, we go into the finder where, wow, I've discovered something that I didn't know was there. And then we go into sharer, which is where you're at, writing books and running podcasts, where we naturally want to share that with the world. And that's what I did with the film and the book, The Portal.
I wanted to highlight that you, through meditation, you maintain that career and the success. And I think that is a key point to what I was saying earlier, is that people who are kind of outside going, I'm not doing that. That's, I'm not going to sit still and be, bored and quit my job and, blah, blah, blah. They have these, of course, they have these crazy ideas of what it is. But you and I know other people that I've interviewed who were lawyers were able to do the same thing in these high stress environments that and CEOs you've mentioned. It's be that meditation can kind of cleanses you daily of stress, of things that kind of want to stick to us. We just kind of shed it at the end of the day, sometimes twice a day. And if it's going really bad, 3 times a day, it's
Yeah,
like,
totally.
whoa, I got to get rid of some of this so I can breathe again. And I think that's really powerful because we can go into any environment that we're called to be in. And you had someone in the portal who's working in a very violent Afghanistan and things like that. It's just, but she was, while other people had to leave and were really burnt out and not able to take it and very depressed, as she mentioned, she could do this meditation practice and be there and serve others in that capacity. So whatever it is, we can become. And I don't know, I'm sort of into these superhuman super beings. We've tapped into a strength that most people aren't really aware of that we have.
Yeah, I do a lot of keynotes at corporations and organizations and conferences. And the two areas that people like me to speak on is leadership and resilience. And those two come together very closely because resilience is the ability to recover quite quickly from challenging situations. That's what resilience is. And leadership is the ability to be in a particular position that is inspirational, but also a particular quality about leaders is that they have this unflappability and an equanimous nature, which means that you don't want a leader that's extremely highly emotional. And we unfortunately have a few political leaders that they're a little bit emotional and they also have access to nuclear weapons, which is a really bad combination. So what we want is leaders that are very stable and able to be moving through life's circumstances, situation with calm, poise and grace and integrity. And I find meditation is one of the key components for that. It's like you said, you can go through quite a challenging situation, but you can meditate and it's almost like getting in a shower and washing that off. It just cleanses very quickly and then you recalibrate and reset and you're ready for the next level of challenges very, very quickly. And this is also part of the flow state program is that you recover and recalibrate very quickly using tools like meditation. Now, if you think of the work environment, when people take their breaks, they'll go down and get a double shot macchiato and they'll scroll through their TikTok or Instagram or check their messages and their recovery period is really poor and weak. And so
Yeah.
when they go back into their work period, which is facing more challenges, there hasn't been a very solid reset. So they're getting this stress upon stress upon stress, which of course is wearing us out as humans.
Yes. You bring up so many things, and my mind just wants to jump on all of them. And I want to get to these other wonderful things that you're doing. But I'm going to say that you talked about the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. And I think most people are really starting to understand that because in our medical pillar, they're starting to tell people, yeah, your cortisol and your heart rate and your this and your blood pressure and all these things and diabetes and all these things that are coming into our Western societies or this extended period of being in your sympathetic nervous system. And I remember I was interviewing someone once and she said she was like just a very A personality. She had done a lot and she worked for a big corporation and she said I thought that if I stopped I would be boring. And I just went, "Oh, that's what people think. They think that I'm bored. They think that being me would be so boring." I mean, because they're like you're just so calm all the time. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, being tapped into the universe is the most exciting thing, but you don't have to comment on it all the time. You don't have, it's instead of scrolling and looking at other people's moment of high or low or whatever that is, it's like you're just checked into nature or the colors or the kids or the cityscape, whatever it is. And it's so exciting because it's that universal field. So it's so interesting that the parasympathetic nervous system is really we say rest, what, and digest, rest, relax, and digest, or something. And it does sound kind of boring when you put it that way. But when you say it's the expanded field of infinite possibilities and creativity, and you walk around, that's kind of what you're in. That's the vibration of what you're in. I'm never bored. I'm always pretty. I'm always
Well,
pretty entertained.
if we break it down into really simple terms, is that every single action on the planet, for every single person right this very moment, whether they're going to the gym or cleaning the bathroom floor or eating ice cream or going on a hike in Tibet, meditating in a monastery, doing crack cocaine in a ghetto in LA, every single action is motivated by one thing, and that's the quest to find fulfillment.
Yeah.
So the search for fulfillment motivates all action because we're coming from a place of no fulfillment or depleted fulfillment. So we're in what's conditioned into us through our programming, what's called outcome-oriented fulfillment. I need something in this action or in this acquisition to provide me with fulfillment. Now, what we have to do is we have to get humans into what's called self-referred fulfillment. Now, when we come to looking at the love frequency chart, when you look at the measurable hertz of the state of humans, so that's anger and shame and guilt down at 20, 30, 40, 50 hertz, which is a vibrational measurement of what state you're in. And we look at the highest frequencies, so enlightenment is 700 to 1000. But just below enlightenment, and even above love, is peace. Peace is 600 vibrational hertz. And interestingly, everything we're trying to experience as far as fulfillment in our world can be experienced through peace, which is the ultimate human experience, yet very few people on the planet are seeking peace. Yeah. Most people are seeking an outcome so that then they can get the fulfillment. So we say, why don't you establish fulfillment first through peace? And then from there, we go into action from fulfillment. So action from fulfillment is very different than action for fulfillment.
Yes.
And there's a beautiful, one of my favorite Sanskrit quotes, Yogastha Kuru Kamani, which means established in being, which is peace or fulfillment, perform action. So established in being, perform action. Yogastha Kuru Kamani. Yet most of the world is coming from a lack of fulfillment and going into action for fulfillment, and it's not the right way to do things. It's going to be probably I think the main cause for obesity. It's probably the main cause for diabetes. It's probably the main cause for most of our anxieties, and probably the main cause for most of our environmental problems, because of that constant need to acquire or experience something to try and extract and commoditize fulfillment out of that action.
Yes, really beautifully stated. When people kind of get that they're creating action and doing, and in this state of constant movement, they think, well, if I do this, I'll be happy, I'll have peace, I'll be fulfilled. If I get that promotion, if I buy that car, if those people are looking at me, if I join that country club, whatever it is, and it just keeps building, and they're not even stopping to really enjoy that, to take the fulfillment that might actually be there because it was a desire, but most of us don't even take the time to rest in the outer fulfillment of accomplishing a goal. But the inner, just being aligned with action, the inspired action is what is, I don't know the Sanskrit term for it, but where it's no action. It's called, no action, but because it doesn't feel like you're doing anything, there's such a synchronicity, there's such an alignment that things are moving together to produce an outcome that is in alignment with your fulfillment from within. And it feels a lot different than the running around, the putting out fires, the trying to create out of fulfillment. So that's...
Yeah, if I thought we were going to have an enlightened planet tomorrow, I'd short all the shares I could in Amazon. Because people would just stop that incessant buying. They would just stop that compulsive buying, because they were just probably 90% of the things we buy on Amazon are things we simply don't need, but we're buying them to try and extract some pleasure. Same with eBay, same with, probably short most of the pharmaceutical companies as well, because people in peace, generally their system, which is a biological system, operates more efficiently when we have peace and calm in it. And Dr. Bruce Lipton from Stanford University Medical School says that 95% of all sickness is a result of stress, because stress is a disturbance within the system, and that disturbance is causing sickness, which is exactly what happened to me. I was extremely sick, physiologically, mentally, emotionally, and that was because there was way too much hyperactivity in my system.
Yeah.
And when I started to meditate and experience greater calm, greater peace, my system started operating much more orderly and cohesively. And I like the analogy of a broken leg. If we have a broken leg, we put a cast around it. And the cast is doing absolutely nothing as far as fixing the break in the leg. But what it's doing is creating stillness. It's creating inaction. And it's that stillness that allows the intelligence within the system to do what it does really well, which is heal the broken leg.
Yeah.
And so if we apply that to our own lives and apply some stillness on a daily basis, morning and evening, to our system, then it will simply start to operate more efficiently, more effectively.
Absolutely. I think we've convinced everyone.
I've done my best.
We just have a billion people watch this and they're going to be meditating. But actually, I want to point them to The Portal, because I really enjoyed that movie. It was very beautifully made. And it took people who I think most of us can relate to on one level or another, who have lives that we can relate to. They were accomplishing things, they were doing things, or they were in an environment that was doing things to them. And it shows their this beautiful progression into meditation and how that changed their life. What was the inspiration for that book and that movie?
I guess in many ways it was my story that I had transformed my life through crisis. And crisis isn't actually there to punish us. It's not there because we're a victim. It's not there because we're a bad person. It's there as a mechanism for evolution.
Yeah.
And in Sanskrit, we call this a rashi. A rashi is a crisis moment that is the catalyst for change if change has been ignored. And so it was really looking at getting 6 stories, and we interviewed over 300 people from around the world that had crisis and chrysalis through meditation, because we can use other things for that chrysalis, that transformation, which would be plant medicine or yoga or breath work or something like that. But for me, it was meditation. So that's what we wanted to show the stories around. And so it was really about showcasing that no matter who you are, no matter what your story, no matter how challenging your background or experiences are, everyone has the opportunity for alchemy, for that transformation. And a great tool to help you through that is meditation.
It's reminding me of the saying, we're pushed by pain until we're pulled by the vision, which is sort of what you were saying too about the inspired action. It's like if sometimes we're just pushing ourselves into painful situations, or life is going to do that for us, as just not as a punishment, but as an opportunity to create something vastly different, to emerge as that new human being, the butterfly, something completely different, restructured, and in an obviously what most of us would say in an incredibly more powerful, more creative, more peaceful, more aligned way. It was a beautiful film. I invite
Thank you.
and it's free. Isn't it
For
free?
now, it's free. Yeah, it's still free for a little bit longer till we go on some streaming platforms. We're about to go on a few streaming platforms, so we'll have to have a payment gateway once that happens. And we wanted to give this to the world at this point in time, just for a short window, for letting the world, support the journey and get the insights, hopefully. So it's been quite a journey for us. It's been a very challenging process, and it's interesting making a film about meditation. I never imagined it to be so stressful.
Good thing you had to practice.
Yeah, definitely. It was almost like the universe was teaching us, like, hey, we'll test your practice to see how good it is. We're going to make this really difficult.
Oh, well, I remember when COVID came out, every day I was just sloughing off the new information, the misinformation, yesterday's information, the fear, just people walking down the street were just so fearful, everything. And I started feeling it coming into me, is how I feel it. It feels like it's coming into me, and that meditation, just letting it go, letting it go, letting it go.
Yeah, I just did a post on my Instagram, which I know is a shameless plug here. So come and join me.
Yes.
And the post yesterday was that no one's immune from challenges, no matter how enlightened or conscious you are. Your parents will pass. Your kids might get sick. Someone might bump into the back of your car, or your car might break down, or Bitcoin might collapse. Who knows? There's going to be things that are going to challenge us, but like you said, it gives us greater resilience, greater unflappability to be in those times, and interestingly move through them more quickly and more effortlessly, more graciously. But more importantly, you mentioned a word which was so lovely to hear you mention it, that we're embodiment of love. And when we can come back to love through any circumstance and situation, then I think we're truly free.
Oh yeah. Well, love for me is like it's a word like meditation where people have an idea of what it should be or what it should feel like or what it should look like. And again, in the Western world, we have so much of an identification with a romantic type of love or, that I don't know, storybook type of love.
Mm-hmm.
But that deep sense of love for me is where I am when I meditate. And it is the connection, the I don't know what, the light that connects everything. Everything's connected, and it's that connection is love, and it's creative, and it's healing, it's wholeness, it's powerful, it's freedom, it's all the things that we're looking for out there. It's right here.
Mm. Yeah, so true. Yeah, I love it.
Well,
Beautiful.
I think you have another book, Deep Calm, A Practical Guide to Stop Anxiety and Panic. There's a big call to help people who really need to relieve their anxiety and fear and panic, especially now.
Yeah, look, I first and foremost want to say that meditation is not a one-stop shop. We've kind of talked a lot about it, but I take a very holistic approach to wellness in all areas, and that's relationships, it's money, it's health, it's all sorts of things. And so, with anxiety, if people have got anxiety or insomnia or depression, then we need to look at a very holistic approach. We can't just meditate, but then be drinking 4 cups of coffee every day and going to bed at midnight playing Fortnite or something. So, we really need to look at how we're living our life. What are we doing? And Deep Calm really looks at that very holistic approach on all areas to bring about systemic change in the way we're doing things. So obviously we can reduce the anxiety and live free from the anxiety over time.
For some reason, I just went back to you said it a slightly different way, but I'll say inspired action. When we're that still, instead of, I think, with anxiety and drinking the 4 cups of coffee, we're really inspired to nourish ourselves. There's this calling from within to recognize what we're doing in the sense of, is this nourishing me? Is this helping me?
Yeah, absolutely. When we're more peaceful, we make better decisions about what we're going to eat, what we're going to drink, what time we go to bed, who we're going to hang out with, what type of work we want to be, what type of place we want to live in. All these things start to spill over from that particular state. And I find that let's start with the starting point of the state that you're in and then start making external life choices from there, which makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and I just spoke about this recently that so many of us make these New Year's resolutions based on fear, where it's like, oh, I see that number on the scale, or I got the doctor's report, the first of the year, I better do something, and they make these action plans, but they're not inspired, they're not from that place of your body loving you and yourself loving you and saying, hey, this is going to serve us. And those, I find, when we're in touch with that within ourselves, the resolution, if you want to call it, the inspiration to do that and to stay with it, we see the results so quickly, and it's not difficult. I feel like resolutions are so, I'm going to make this happen no matter what. People are on that diet for a long time and don't lose the weight. But when we're in touch with that within us, that is just love, and it's already fulfilled. It loves who we are, and it directs us through love to nourish it. Then I think those are so much easier.
Yeah. Getting back into flow state, I think, is really important, and just being able to tune in to our body's needs. That was a big one for me, was not listening to desires and emptiness and lack of fulfillment, but listening to a communication system that's inherent within all of us that guides us. Some call it intuition, some call it gut feel, but there's definitely a natural intuition and natural guidance system that we have that is a really powerful mechanism for living a fulfilling and gentle and peaceful life.
Well, I just wanted to ask you, what is the most exciting thing in your life right now?
Oh, that's such a good question. Oh gosh, I find like I'm on my parents' farm at the moment. That there's so many things that that excite me. Like there's this ant's nest that is this huge mound that just grows on the road, and they're just watching those ants every day with incredible activity is exciting to me. But then I've got my children, and I've got my partner and my wife. I've got my students. I've got retreats coming up in April in Australia. We've got one happening in Bali in September. I'm about to go to Bali next week. I'm running another retreat, a private retreat, which I'm really excited about. Talking to you is exciting. So I find that kind of moments throughout the day, having a chai latte is exciting. So I find that I'm filled with this awe, and this is how we should be living our lives throughout the day.
Yes, you had a quote on your website that I so relate to from Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. There is no need to suffer. What is it? There's no need to suffer in life. The ocean of bliss is within everyone. And it's it's so true, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. This is my goal, is to inspire people to tap in and find that inner bliss. It's something inside of us that's not in a shopping mall.
It's it, it is not in the shopping mall. Well, I know we didn't get a chance to talk about all your books. I think we hit on some things enough for people to go explore on your website. I know one of them is tomcronin.com, very easy to remember. It will be in the show notes. Your book and books are on Amazon and your website. And you listed some retreats, but I invite people to really go to your website and explore, because I know you just do incredible retreats, and now you have these incredible locations. So that'll be fun. And you do your Vedic online now. I think that's
That's
really
right.
important for people to know. That's very powerful. I am a licensed teacher with Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, The Art of
Mhm.
Living. So I've had a
Awesome.
mantra for, I don't know how long, I'm afraid to say 30 years or something. And it's so beautiful. So now everyone has the opportunity to go online with you and really get that personal experience from across the world or wherever
Yeah,
they're.
this wasn't something traditionally done, and that's probably because we didn't have the ability to do that. And so a lot of people who are the purists in the practice are like, oh, we can't teach them online because it was never done that way. And it's like, well, maybe they might have if they had the opportunity. So I feel now that we have the ability to transform people's lives all over the world, then I feel we're being gifted with the opportunity to do that through Zoom. So I'm using that as a vehicle to access the world. And it's been phenomenal. I've seen people changing their lives through learning to meditate all around the world now. And it's really an honor to be able to teach them. And if people are interested in learning, they can reach out to me.
I agree with that. That's 100%. Absolutely. And you're making it accessible. And I don't know that everybody knows this. Maybe some people are on overload from YouTube and all these things, but there is a wonderful energy and connection no matter how far away we are physically. But when we are able to look into each other's eyes on a YouTube or whatever it is, there's a connection if we allow it, if we open ourselves up to it. And so they will feel that from you. I am certain. I feel it now and today, and I think the audience will too. So thank you to our audience so much for joining us. And just let me know, Tom, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, it's just been wonderful to share space with you. And thanks everyone for listening in. And I'm wishing you a great sense of peace and joy throughout the year of 2025. And going to be some interesting times ahead. And let's find that inner calm and inner peace through these difficult and challenging times.
Yes, the way showers through calm, with calm and peace. Thank you. And I invite our viewers to join me every week for a new insight into how we can love our life and live our passion. And just remember to laugh, love, and live enlightened every day. Thank you, Tom.
My pleasure. Thank you.